We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our friends at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use the box at sign up for 10 points. And here we go.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the show that you love to turn on every Sunday and get juiced up for some nice football. Only on the Sports Box Network. I am Hampton Michaeletta. Along with my partners in crime, my compadres and co-workers here, we have Brian the Ranger Tard, Tony Quigley, and Brandon Gazzara. Gentlemen, what's up?
Good morning.
That's birthday boy Brandon Gazzara, Mike. Come on.
That's right. I'm sorry. It is Brandon's birthday today. He is 23 years young today. We want to wish Brandon a very, very happy birthday.
16 to Brandon.
Although we won't say how the rest of us are, how old we are, so we'll get past that. So, big slate today. Talk about some picks, got some other topics for you. But first, Brian will give you some knowledge.
Guys, thanks for watching the show today. Make sure you check out our friends over at CrowdPlay. Their app is available on Apple App Store and Google Play. You can win cash and prizes by predicting the outcome of both real and virtual sporting events. It is free to play. Use our code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Because you're like the rest of us, we're pretty terrible at it. So you get the free points and start off on the right foot.
If I was actually pretty terrible, it'd be a step up. I'm actually hideous.
I aspire to be terrible. Right now, I'm working my way up to get there.
Oh, that's shoot for high goals. There you go.
That's right.
So, Brian, I'll hand it off to you. Where do you want to go first?
Well, I think before we get to the Thursday night game and basically the abomination that was for professional football, I just want to talk a little bit about probably the breaking news of the week in that Tom Brady gets another weapon. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have added former Steelers wide receiver, temporary Raiders wide receiver, somewhat of Patriots wide receiver, Antonio Brown, to their ever-growing slate of offensive weapons. He is still serving an 8-game suspension, so I think week 9 is the earliest we may see him. It's an incentive-laden deal, as you may have imagined. And, Michael, you're wearing your Buccaneers paraphernalia today, and your quarterback, which really it's more Brandon's quarterback, but your quarterback has been angling for this for apparently the entire time that he got there. So I just kind of want to get your take on, do you like it? Do you not like it? What does he bring? Just your overall thoughts as a general.
I mean, we had previously talked about this before the show. I mean, it's a name, Antonio Brown. He hasn't played in a while, but it's somebody that, you want to bring in another guy that can help the team out. Yeah. Now, how is he going to help the team out? You already have Godwin there. You already have Gronkowski. You have Evans. You have guys that are playing well. And Brady likes to spread the ball out. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to use Antonio Brown. And the whole factor of, is he going to play? Or is he going to, be a nut job like he was in the last scenario with the Patriots? And we all thought with the Patriots, I don't know if it was the last stop for him, but that was a perfect scenario where he can be better, be controlled, and everything would go smooth. And look how that turned out. Listen, I like the move. I think it adds another tool in the belt of Tom Brady. Tom Brady wants it. Tom Brady gets it. And it goes into what you said, Brian, before. The Bucs are all in. They want to get this thing done this year, and they're going to do whatever they can to try to add pieces to help Tom Brady get the needle moving forward.
Brandon, you have an affinity for the quarterback. I don't think you're very shy about it.
Little love affair.
I look at this graphic courtesy of CBS Sports, and it just feels like, when Vince Young said the Eagles were the dream team that one year and it kind of blew up in his face, like this kind of has that feel to it, because I'm looking at it and it'd be a pretty good team in Madden 12, but here we are. And who is the primary, who loses touches because Antonio Brown's on the field, if anybody?
Well, I think losing touches, I would think it would be Gronk. We saw him start to get into the offense once O.J. Howard went down for the season. I think Antonio Brown, there was 19 targets that went around to O.J. Howard in the first 4 weeks when he was healthy. So I think, you'll see those targets go to Antonio Brown. I think you'll see Gronk kind of go back to that role of being a true blocker and not used as much in the receiving game. But I think this move really shows that the Bucs, this team is Tom Brady's team. It's 100% all Tom Brady. He gets what he wants. He got Gronk there. Now he gets Antonio Brown there. We heard Bruce Arians say in March that they weren't bringing Antonio Brown in, and 7 months later, and Antonio Brown's there. So I think it's Brady's team, and it's going to ride on. It's going to ride on Tom. If this thing blows up, it's not going to be a good look for Tom. I don't think it will, because I think if anyone can make it work, it's going to be Tom. And getting Antonio Brown the ball, who's great at catching the ball down the field. We saw him with Ben catching the deep ball, and that's what Bruce Arians' offense is, and they've had some success with that. A name, you asked, where the targets. Scotty Miller, he might not see the field anymore.
Quickly, I want to respond to Ryan Leach's comment here. He wonders if this is shows the dynamic difference between Bill and him, and we're in New England where Brown got cut and Brady maybe wanted to keep him. Just your thoughts.
Well, when Brady came out of retirement, he targeted two guys to join him, and that was Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski, and now he got both his toys, I guess to say. The Brown signing, well, last week when we did touch about how displeased Tom was with the coaching of Tampa Bay and the accountability and the preparation and stuff like that, and they come out and they run through Green Bay, so it shows that Brady is kind of really transitioned his mindset into this Tampa Bay team, and he's getting the pieces now to go with it. I think the Brown signing in general, though, shows two big things. One is the health of Mike Evans. He hasn't been healthy all year, so this might alleviate some of that pressure on him. The other thing is, I think what people are overlooking is that Antonio Brown still has a pending sexual assault case, in court set for December, which is a very, very interesting caveat to throw into this, because he has a very incentive-laden contract. Now, I'm just going to go conspiracy theory, big NFL here, is most likely that case that's set for December is automatically going to go out to like June or July. It's going to be postponed or something like that now that he signed with a team. So there's only one ball to go around in Tampa Bay, though, and it's not really a huge pass-heavy offense at this point. So, they beat Green Bay last week because of the running game. And I think that's pretty much what they're going to see, and it's going to definitely see if Brady has the power to control him as well.
Yeah, but Brian, to piggyback off of Quigley real quick, I think that's the main reason they brought Antonio Brown in too, is because of the injuries to Mike Evans. He's not the same Mike Evans he was last year, at least not so far. He isn't. And then you have Godwin, who's missed some time with concussion protocol and everything. They're just, I don't want to say stacking the deck, but they're just bringing an extra guy in case of whatever happens. Scotty Miller, though, Brandon, I think Scotty Miller is a favorite target of Tom Brady. And and I know Tom Brady likes to spread it around. I think he loses some catches, Scotty Miller, but he's like the Cole Beasley of this team. He'll get a big catch when they need a third down, and that's his role in the slot right now.
He can't spread it around enough to keep all these receivers happy.
Yeah.
Gronk already bitched this season. Gronk is already displeased,
Comment and a question coming from Eileen. I know she's a Pats fan, critical of Brady going to Tampa to begin with. The Bucs having those two guys is great. She feels like AB's a liability where he's been, and he's been a problem ever since he left Pittsburgh, and really before he left Pittsburgh. And then, Mike, a question for you is, Where are you right now with what you've seen from Brady and Gronk? I think that's probably a mixed bag for you.
I mean, I'm happy with Brady's progression in the beginning of the year. I know he didn't play well in the first couple of games, and people were like, "Oh, look at Brady." But he has to get comfortable with this team, and I think he's starting to get a little bit comfortable with the timing and the way Gronk's running and different receivers. And I think that's only going to get better, if not, not get worse. Gronk, I'm glad they're getting him involved in the offense finally. He joked about he was a blocking back in the first couple of games of the year, but now they're getting him involved, and it goes into the Brady comfort factor. And I think it's only going to, get better from here on out.
Resident Bears fans still can't beat the Bears.
Well, they should have won that game, but that's a whole nother issue. Brady went, Brady went old right there. So that's
and then Ryan Leach.
We'll see when the game's on the line there.
Yeah, which AB are you getting? And it's a fair question, but I think that again, it only blew up in New England the way that it did because of the off the field stuff. It wasn't anything that he did on the field. Even the one game that he played, he was fine.
He was excellent.
So, from the standpoint of, the adult in the room, it's Tom. Tom went to bat for you to bring you in. I think it's one of those things where, like, you really don't want to put Brady's trust in you and waste it. Because it's one of those things where I said before the year, for Cam Newton, he had to have a good year this year because if he didn't, he's never getting another job.
That's AD.
If Brown is a malcontent, which I don't foresee that happening, but if there's some problems with him off the field, this is his absolute last chance. And if he wants to try to parlay this into a deal next year, the year after, who knows, you can't blow this. So
it's certainly a last ditch effort. And if you've seen the contract, I mean, he can make up to $2.5 million, and it's a lot of incentives, catches, touchdowns, yards, and even a Super Bowl win. So it's certainly it's viable for Antonio Brown if he's smart. I mean, there's money to be made there, if he can keep his act together.
Here's my only problem with that. Whenever wide receivers get these kind of deals that are contingent upon how often the ball is thrown to them, if it is not getting thrown to them, they're going to complain it is not getting thrown to them. And when you have an offense like the graphic showed very clearly, there's a lot of people here for one football. So that's the thing is you need guys to play roles, right? If Evans isn't getting his, and he seems to get it by the goal line. Okay, now you have to throw the ball there, make him happy. OJ Howard's still around, who's an excellent pass-catching tight end. You have two running backs, one kind of
for the season.
Right now. What does that look like?
OJ Howard's for the season.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think he is for the season. I have him on a fantasy team, and I forgot about that.
Do you think some of those concerns are kind of thrown out the window a little bit with some of the guys if they're winning? If like a guy like, let's say, Chris Godwin or Gronk or Mike Evans, they're winning every game, and they might not be getting the numbers, quite what they're used to. Could that levy some of that anger?
Very possibly, but I think, again, this is going to – and I said before the season, I think you all agree. I don't think Arians is really coaching this team. This is Tom Brady's team. You do Tom's running this shit, right?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, Tom's going to be the one who stuck his neck on the line for Antonio Brown. If this blows up with Antonio Brown, the person who will be blamed is Tom Brady.
For sure.
Well, I think Tom helps him. I think right now, at his point in career, Brady's a little bit, Teflon against some of that stuff. No one's going to be coming down Brady's neck. I mean, if they cut Antonio Brown right now before the games even begin, Bucks are still going to be fine. So you're looking at something that I don't think Brady's going to get too much heat. And here's the other thing too. You said when Brady went to bat for him, the other quarterback that really went to bat vocally for him was Russell Wilson. You got Brady and Wilson, two very high quality, respected guys in the NFL going back for the guy. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's a weird landing spot for Brown too, as far as individually, because there were so many teams out there, receiver needer teams like Philadelphia and other that didn't even seem to pursue him. So it's going to be interesting.
To that point, Quick, I thought the Baltimore Ravens were a team that should have been in on Antonio Brown. I mean, they have I believe it's his cousin, right, with Hollywood Brown there? Yeah.
That's just I was about to bring this up. My favorite signing this week is not Antonio Brown, it's Dez Bryant.
Yeah. I mean, they certainly needed a receiver. But I felt like the best fit for AB was Baltimore.
Well, here's the thing. Tampa Bay, you mentioned Hollywood Brown. Now, Hollywood Brown, right, they're related. So they're very similar players into the style of what they do. What Baltimore really needs is someone who could run them dig routes and them hard slant routes and stuff like that to kind of open things up, because they have guys who could take the top off like Boykin and Hollywood Brown. Mark Andrews and them work underneath the middle. But they need somebody that could actually, they need a bigger receiver, and Brown doesn't really fit that mold. So I can see that. And like I said, I hope Dez actually turns out to something.
The last thing I wanted to say about the Antonio Brown thing, I think the whole thing with him is going to be a mental thing, because with Pittsburgh, I mean, we're going back a little bit. With Pittsburgh, he was the man. He was the guy everybody looked at to make big plays, stuff like that. In his situation right now, he's got to make the transition over to he's not the main guy anymore. He's a part of a team now. So is he going to get bent if he doesn't get as many catches as he thought he was going to get? And if it goes on, is he going to start, popping the top off and going nuts a little bit?
I don't think about it because Brady will tell him to sit down and shut up.
Right.
Brady has a long history of dealing with receivers.
Yep.
Randy Moss,
Ocho Cinco.
What's that?
Ocho Cinco. I mean, he wasn't even getting the ball, and that was never an issue there.
He's like the soothsayer for wayward wide receivers, and I think Brady could handle that. And Brady has no problem getting in somebody's face, Antonio Brown or whatever, and tell him to sit down, shut up, be a part of the team. I have Mike Edwards, I have Godwin. I mean, he could look in that locker room. Right. It's not like Antonio Brown's going to be sitting there with a bunch of trash cans like the Eagles wide receivers, and then he goes there and he's not getting the ball. He's like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah, and it's funny. We're saying all this stuff, and he played with Brady and flipped out with Brady, and then he got they let him go. But Brady still wanted him to come back to Tampa, so that's an interesting point as well. So,
well, to your point, Mike, that was never really an on-field or even a locker room issue.
Right, it was off the field. Right.
Antonio Brown say off Twitter issue. It was more of something like that. So,
right,
yeah. Last question for you, Mike, on the topic. Eileen wants to know, do you see a playoff run here? I think we all do. As far as where you think they can go, I just don't think Gronk's part of this equation, maybe even to the point where we thought he would be. I mean, I kind of thought he'd be a red zone target myself. I didn't think he's athletic the way he used to be, but that isn't even materializing either because of the fact that they have so many weapons to throw the ball to. So as the Buccaneers fan extraordinaire, your view right now on the rest of the way.
I mean, I thought in the beginning of the season they're not going to get by the Saints in the way of winning a division, but the way the Saints have been going without Michael Thomas, I mean, they do have an opportunity to move in front of them a little bit. I don't know if they can hold it the entire year, but I do definitely think the Bucs will make the playoffs. And listen, Gronk has to get more involved in the offense. I mean, is he going to get involved like he was in New England? I don't think so, because like you said, Brian, they got too many targets.
He's not the same player either, though, Mike. We talked about this during signing. He's not the same player.
Correct.
Signing Gronk was not going to carry them to the friggin' thing.
No, it's comfortability, comfortableness with Brady.
Yeah, but there's a reason why OJ Howard was getting all the targets and stuff like that. He's not the same guy. And Cameron Brate's is a very good tight end too.
Correct.
So Gronk ain't carrying anybody anywhere. It's
right. They're not going to move down to the playoff because of Gronk. Yeah,
right. What he can do is help to carry that running game, which is something that they needed to progress with this offense with Tom. Bruce
and they are
a guy, and Gronk's the best blocking tight end I've probably ever seen in my life. So and in that respect, it's an upgrade over whatever they had, and it's a benefit for them. But in terms of receiving, and it's really not that impactful at all.
Right.
On Thursday night. What a game. I mean,
riveting.
They got to figure out something here with flex scheduling, because these games are pretty good.
Time out.
That was an entertaining game.
That was exactly. I'm not an Eagles fan. I'm not a Giants fan. Obviously, I'm a Cowboys fan. But that you're on here bashing the freaking game. The game was a good game. It was entertainment. It was theatrical plays. It was a close game. What more can you want? Just because you don't like the teams that are the colors of the team?
That's not going to do it.
Idiotic statement.
It's just bad teams on prime time.
So what? It was a good game. Two bad teams.
That was a good football game. I enjoy good football, and then that could have been the Jaguars and the freaking
that's the thing. It was
Redskins. Good football is good football. I mean, I don't really care who's playing. I'm still going to watch it.
Danny Dimes getting sniped at the 10-yard line.
Yeah,
great plays.
I wonder who shot him out of the 700 level or up top.
So you ever see those Buffalo Wild Wings commercials where they that was.
Yeah, they did that. Somebody put that in there with that.
There it is.
The one thing that we'll always have from this game,
the fastest player in the NFL,
and this was very fast, but then it was so fast that he actually tripped on the imaginary line. I think he tripped over the 20-yard line.
The turf monster must have grabbed him.
That damn 20-yard line. We'll let it go once more.
It's unbelievable. I mean,
what you saw here is Carson Wentz make some incredibly awful throws, and then he made some incredibly good throws. I mean, Boston Scott's catch to win the game, Evan Ingram's drop to lose the game. I mean, there's some great plays in this game. I'm not going to bash this game. This is fun football. If you're a football fan and you're on this show and you don't enjoy this game, you need to reevaluate your fucking knowledge.
I will give the Eagles credit in that they did a very nice job putting their fans in with the cardboard cutouts. It actually looked like I was watching a normal football game. But yeah, listen, a lot of the memes came from this. We'll always have this. Our friends over at NFL Banter did a real nice job. Their post blew up with WWE moves on Danny Dimes that was falling down. So big props to them. Brandon, your team got a win that they desperately needed. It wasn't pretty at times, but they did get it done. Is there anything that you take from this game as a positive other than, okay, they got a win?
Well, I mean, the positive is they won. And look, that's how this team has to win. They just don't have enough healthy players right now. I mean, you look at the offensive line; it's the entire offensive line is hurt outside of Jason Kelsey. We know what they have at running back, and Miles Sanders is out. They're on their third tight end. The top three receivers are. I mean, this offense is completely barren of healthy players, and that's the way this team has to win games. Win ugly.
Here's the world's smallest fiddle with everybody in the NFL, including the Cowboys, crying about the Eagles' fucking injuries. Every team has injuries. Get over it. Get over it.
That's the way the Eagles have to win, and they have to win ugly. They did, and that's the only way. Luckily, they're in the division this bad that if they can win even 6 games, six games is going to win this division. Especially with that tie, it's going to help them because I don't see Dallas winning 7 games. I mean, so it's going to come down to those 2 games against Dallas.
Well, it was
and the way to do it is you have 5 division games left coming into this week. You won one of them. You got 4.
I thought Jeremy Berland said 7-9 wins the division.
Well, I like that tie. The tie, just throw the tie out. It's not there anymore.
Tie goes to the runner.
Yeah.
Aaron, this was the first Eagles win when they were trailing by 10 or more points in the fourth quarter since Week 14 of 2012. They'd lost 36 of those in a row. So a lot of there's a lot of angst about Carson Wentz. And again, it wasn't helped at all by the drafting of Jalen Hurts. But I am not a Wentz hater. I try not to be a Wentz apologist. But having said that, he has 6 game-winning drives since 2019. 3 of them have come against this team. So is that a Wentz thing or is that this is the Giants thing?
Well, he has 3 this year. So he has 3 game-winning drives this year. He leads the NFL. He's tied with Ryan Tannehill. So I've never.
How many wins do they have?
They have 2. But
So
the
how do they
tie,
have 3?
They can't have 3.
the tie
They can't
counts.
have 3.
Well, the tie counts as a comeback.
Tie goes to the runner.
Yeah, all right. Let's not bring up baseball after last night.
How about that? I was watching that. That's insane.
Oh, you actually watched the game?
I did. I was getting prepped for the show, and I had my little TV on here, so it was on in the background, and I was watching.
It's a rare occurrence.
Eagles now 6-0 under Doug Peterson on Thursday nights, and 3 of those things have come against the Giants. The Eagles just own the Giants. I mean,
The play calling with Peterson, though, it has been extremely suspect. I mean, it seems like they're just pulling stuff out of their ass. Against good teams, they're not going to do it. I mean, they had a nice comeback against Baltimore, but Baltimore gave up after they were up like 30-0. So, I mean, let's temper our expectations. Peterson's going to have to start calling better games. That Jalen Hurts play for 2, just idiotic. It's just really idiotic. You wouldn't even make them playing calls in Madden, let alone in an NFL franchise.
Yeah, some of the 2-point try that they tried with Wentz, they actually were on the 1 because there was a penalty. They ran a quarterback power. I didn't like that play call at all. But look, I think overall with Doug, he's getting crushed. And, there's times when I crush him. It's hard to call a game when you just have that many players out. And other teams are dealing with it. But, I mean, it's hard. And it's hard.
It is hard. Imagine
if Mike leave with that comment. I'm about to leave next. Just because your players are out. Listen, you practice the plays, you work the plays, next man up. You running a draw like that. Come on, stop. It's not about the players aren't out there. I mean, I didn't
like that call, but I think overall.
You didn't like the call. Who's the pass thrown to, Brandon?
What, the last one?
The fade route that they threw.
Hakeem Butler.
Hakeem Butler, right? That was Hakeem Butler's first ever snap in the NFL. First ever snap in the NFL in a big point of game. And you make a play call to throw a fade to a guy who's never stepped foot in the NFL game in a big spot like that. That just shows right there that something is not firing right in either your offensive coordinator, Doug Peterson, whoever. That's just bad decision making. Or
I would have rather that have been Fulgham or even Richard Rodgers, who's been a guy who's been reliable.
Anybody who played in the NFL one snap. And what was that, the third quarter, fourth quarter, being the fourth?
Yeah, that was a fourth down on the goal
So
line.
you run a receiver that's never stepped foot on the NFL field before to go run a fade route. And listen, I know Hakeem Butler. I followed him in college. He has the measurables and everything like that. Reminds me of Dorial Green Beckham. You know, a lot of talent, a lot of measurables.
Another Eagles loser.
No, that's why I brought him up. But he was the number one wide receiver coming out of high school. The kid was phenomenal. Butler, not the same pedigree, but similar build. And you don't run him out there very first play of his NFL career and throw a ball to him in that play call in a huge spot in the game. Unless you're trying to tank. Maybe that's what they're trying to do.
One way or another. Mike eventually get back into this conversation, but as I was watching this game, Tony, you and I talked about this briefly, but I want to talk about it with the group. So there is a distinct possibility that a 5-6 win team wins the NFC East. And they're going to get a home playoff game because they win the NFC East.
Right.
So we may be putting the cart before the horse here, being that we're only in week 7 and there's another 9-10 more weeks to go in the regular season. But do you still feel that given where we are right now, that should division winners be guaranteed a home playoff game? Now, I'm not saying should they not make the playoffs, but what I'm saying is should they get the home game because they happen to be better than the other 3 teams in their arbitrary division?
You want me to go? Because I think it's I think it's an asinine idea because here's the thing. The NFL already has imbalanced schedules as is, okay? When you have an imbalanced schedule, then you're not comparing apples to oranges. Right now this year, the NFC East is obviously they play each other and it's all rotational too. I mean, next year the Cowboys could be a great team or whatever, just hypothetically, right? Goes thing. AFC, Bengals and Browns were hideous for so many years. I mean, when you're dealing with imbalanced schedules, reseeding is idiotic. Changing things how they are is just idiotic because it's random for the most part. Now you got teams the NFC East is a putrid division. The AFC East. How about the AFC East? I mean, the Patriots fucking play 3 horrible teams every year. So that's guaranteed 6 wins. So now you want to reseed? No, it's not. It doesn't happen like that. The big thing too is, okay, so now you have the NFC West plays the NFC East this year, correct? And you have the AFC Central play the NFC East this year, okay? So do their wins now count less because of their schedule anomaly? No. It's not fair to the other teams. I mean, so you got a team like, say, the Tennessee Titans, right? They don't get the luxury of playing the NFC East. But now we're going to penalize the NFC East, but we're not going to penalize the Tennessee Titans, although they get a big fine this week. You know what I'm saying? So it's just too much imbalance in the scheduling and who's when. And, then it's like, oh, well, we played the Cowboys without Dak, but we played them with Dak. It's just too much. You keep things how it is because there's too many variables that people are not taking into account.
And to your point, Quig, I think we would all agree the 2 best divisions in football are the NFC West and the AFC North. And that's who the NFC East has to play. So to your point, the imbalancing of the schedule is certainly a really good point. And look, I know, we're Eagles fans, Cowboys fans, and so, we might be biased to the division, but I agree with this across the board. Even when I think Carolina won a few years ago at 7-9.
Seattle.
I'm like, no, Carolina did. It was like
they did. I know Seattle did.
Yeah, Carolina was like 7-8-1 or something a few years ago, and they won the division. I'm like, you win a division. If you have a problem with it, win your division. I mean, that's the way the NFL is set up. I'm totally okay with that.
Then how about
reshuffling every single year because, you won some more games? No, I don't need that. If you win your division, you get a home playoff game. And I'm totally okay with it.
And a lot of it's been said, and I draw this from basketball and the NBA. They're talking about, we should reseed completely. Listen, you can't reseed completely because the teams don't play the same number of games against each other. If you get a schedule where the teams play the same number of games or anything like that, then that's where you can reseed. It's not possible in the NFL. It's not possible in the NBA. It's just not possible.
Yeah, like in baseball too. I'll just use baseball as an example. You can have a better record as a wild card team, but if you win your division, you have the home game.
Yeah, you could look. I mean, how about the years when the NFC East? You had the Super Bowl coming out the NFC. The Super Bowl winner was coming out the NFC East every year.
What But what I'm saying, and Mike, I want to get your thoughts on here too. But what I'm saying is, it seems more often than not, especially the last couple of years, that the fourth, whoever the 4 seed is, right? That fourth division winner, we're all like, wow, that 5 seeds is 13 and 12 and 4, 11 and 5. I mean, last year specifically, where the Eagles got a home playoff game against Seattle. Seattle was the better team the whole year. They had a better record. I'm not saying again that we should just like throw that whole thing away, but I mean, we're penalizing teams with better records in more difficult divisions by not giving them the home game.
Yeah, but
who's to say it's a more difficult division? I mean, you could be playing a weaker schedule.
That's what I'm saying.
Look at this year. You're playing the AFC North and the NFC West. I mean, those are the 2 best divisions in football that the NFC East is having to play.
If they were playing the AFC East and the AFC and the NFC South or whatever, I mean, that's quite possible that we're not even having this conversation about the NFC East. Now, Ryan Leach brings up the point, and you guys are talking about the Seattle years. Listen, there was years where the NFC West was bad. There was one team that came out of it, and they were bad. But now it's one of the stronger divisions. It's all cyclable. It all happens. It's I think it's just a part of people just want this whole fairness and this soccer mentality almost that almost like a socialist friggin' thing. They have a better record, but it's not apples to apples comparison, and you can't do it.
Mike, your thoughts?
We're on the Pittsburgh game. I'm trying to follow you guys.
No. It's just, should division winners be guaranteed a home playoff game?
I think so. I think that's something that, even though with a bad record, I mean, like Quigley said, all the divisions, they rotate around. 3-4 years ago, you had the NFC East is probably one of the best divisions in football. Now they're one of the worst divisions in football. Then you had the NFC South a couple years ago was one of the better divisions in football. And now, they're right up there again. It all cycles through, but I think that's a benefit for winning the division. It's kind of like an extra piece to get a home game for your division. Yeah, I agree.
Last question before we get into the slate of games. So New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones and injured running back Saquon Barkley were seen clubbing in New York City without wearing any masks. Not that I really necessarily care about that, but I bring that up to bring this up. As we get through the rest of the season, right, when these teams start to fall out of it, when they're 3-win teams in like week 13 and they're not going to make the playoffs, will the NFL be able to hold these COVID-19 protocols when the teams have nothing to play for? Because right now we're seeing it with some teams. I mean, Tennessee, who was undefeated, had some issues. Thankfully, they're past them. When it gets to the point where, these games don't really matter anymore, like, why am I going to put myself through this as a player? And these guys, they make a lot of money. They want to go do what they want to do. Just your thoughts on, is this a problem that's going to rear its head more and more as we get through the rest of the year?
Well, I think it certainly was a concern even coming into the year. I mean, we knew that it was going to be tough to play this season without any COVID cases. I mean, that's just the reality of the world we live in now. But look, if you don't want that to happen, just create harsher punishments. Penalize the players. Penalize Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. I mean, if you think, if you're a team or the NFL, say if you go out and you're clubbing and you're not following the protocols, you're going to get fined or you're going to get suspended. Put it on the individual players. And look, I know it's not the easiest thing. I know it's not the most fun thing, but these guys are making a lot of money. They're still going to work every single day. Like, they're not getting crushed here. If it was me, I would just say penalize the players or penalize the teams directly, and to try to prevent it.
Well, they did just find Tennessee big, $250,000. Because they are the thing is, I don't have a problem with these guys going out and celebrating a loss, or celebrating embarrassing themselves on Thursday Night Football by tripping over the 25-yard line. I don't have a problem with that. But the thing is, you're setting a bad example. If there is a COVID case spread and New York City is still, a hotbed, so to speak, it screws up everything with the NFL, and that's what the problem is. They don't want to cancel games. They don't want to have to reshuffle these games because they already went through it. And if you have somebody willingly breaking the rules, it's just a bad look. It's a really bad look. And to be honest, the DJ who put that information out there, he tried to retract his statement, but the guy's a douchebag. I mean, the days before social media and stuff like that, players like Michael Jordan came out this week and said, listen, I don't know if I could have survived in the day of social media because, his tales of exploits in AC or whatever. I mean, like,
Yeah.
When you see these guys in the public field, you don't put them on blast. Like, keep your phone in your pocket. Like, who cares? You're with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Let them live.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the answer would just be, fines without pay or suspensions without pay for these players if they're going out, just to prevent it from spreading and hurting the NFL. I mean, maybe that's an answer. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know how you're going to police these guys, because, like Tony said, these guys have lives. They go out and they do certain stuff. They got to be smarter. They got to understand what's going on right now. It's not like the NBA where they can keep them all in a bubble and just keep them tight niched and stuff like that. They're letting them go wherever they want to go. But in the case of Tennessee, I mean, that was a little bit of an outbreak. I mean, that was craziness how that all happened. I mean, one or two guys on the Giants, you keep an eye on it. If something spreads, then maybe you do something down the road. But I don't really know how you keep these guys in check and you just start maybe finding individual guys for doing different stuff. That's going to be tough to do that.
Like I said, for teams that are in it, they have an incentive. I just think when the season goes away, we talk about tank. We did tank or no tank on Tuesday. Yep. And, the players don't view it that way. So, we always say, these games that don't matter, that we don't want to watch in week 14, 15, 16, because they don't mean anything. They're going to mean anything then either. And that's
the bottom line is, and I know this isn't the mindset of probably a lot of guys in the league, but you are a professional athlete that does something that not a lot of people in the country or in the world do. You got to be focused. You got to do your job, and you got to stay healthy in a time of COVID where it's craziness in the world right now. So be smart and do your job, and just stay safe. I know that's the easy way to say it, and it's it's life. You go out and you do different things. You think you're not going to get it, but you got to be smart as an athlete. You really do.
And Brian, you mentioned the players. Week 14, 15, 16. You're thinking about tanking. Daniel Jones. Tanking. He's playing for his job. He's the one who's out there.
But it's just that they don't. There's nothing at the end to go for.
I know, but Daniel Jones is playing for a job. If the Giants have a top 3-4 pick, they might be drafting a quarterback here. So I mean, Daniel Jones is being stupid in himself. If Daniel Jones gets the coronavirus and can't play for 2 weeks, and maybe the Giants win a couple of games, or maybe they look a little bit better, the Giants are looking elsewhere, and Daniel Jones is playing for his job every single week right now. That was a stupid move on his part. Saquon Barkley, I get it. I'm not even going to blast him because he's hurt, so I don't even care really what Saquon Barkley does. I really don't. But Daniel Jones, he's supposed to be your franchise quarterback that you took at number 6 overall. You got to be smarter than that.
And you know what, Brian?
And you're playing for your job.
As us as guys looking in and GMs and stuff like that, it's easy to just say, okay, you know what? I hope we lose the rest of the year. But it's guys going out every week. And, anybody, even if you're a bad team, you want to go out and show that you can play in the NFL and you can make plays. I'm sure it's really, really hard for any guys to just say, you know what? I don't care if I do anything this week. Whatever. It's good for the team. It's hard to say that as an athlete.
Yeah.
We'll start with the slate of games, and we'll end up in Atlanta, where the 2-3 Detroit Lions are visiting the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons are laying just 1 in this game. The over-under is 55. Atlanta 1-0 without Dan Quinn coaching. Baby steps, right? Great success. Three of the last 4 matchups between these two teams have been decided by 7 points or less, obviously indicated by the 1 point spread. Atlanta, which just seems to be just an ongoing thing with this team going back many years, 3rd best offense, worst ranked defense. Quickly, you and I made a trade in a league with Julio Jones, which is kind of.
Thank you very much.
Yep, that's fine. Julio Jones has 100+ receiving yards in each of the 2 full games that he's played this year, in weeks 1 and week 6. Given the fact that Atlanta is 1-5, we talked about teams that nothing to play for. What do you make of what to expect from Atlanta? I guess not just in this game, but moving forward for a team that, again, not a lot to really play for.
Well, let me clarify something about last segment that we just talked about real quick. Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, they were at Brandon Gazzara's birthday party last night. So that's
nice.
Where the pictures came from. They were both partying with Brandon Gazzara.
I didn't get the invite.
I wish you would have invited me. Damn, I would have been in a heartbeat.
Yeah, he left that information out, didn't he? Nice kid. But no, listen, what expectations for Atlanta Falcons are the same expectations I had last year, the same expectations I had coming into the season. They're going to score points. They're going to be an interesting offense. I mean, as you see, the over-under is 55. This should be a high-scoring game. Ridley's going to catch balls. Julio Jones is going to catch balls. Matt Ryan's going to throw balls. Will they win? Probably not. I mean, let's be realistic. But I think they are favored. So, I mean, it's a coin flip at home for them. The expectations you should have for Atlanta Falcons are none. I mean, you just watch them play football. Julio's going to make some highlights. Matt Jones, and there's going to be some idiotic errors that cost them a game. And good thing they're playing the Detroit Lions, who is also a very similar team to them, although they have embraced the running game a little bit more. So it's like there's no expectations at all. Shouldn't be.
Brand, we haven't really known Atlanta is like a heavy run team, but Gurley, and we said we didn't know what to expect from him coming into a new spot, but he's one of 4 backs in the league this year with 400+ rushing yards and 5+ rushing touchdowns, joining Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and Ezekiel Elliott, which are, pretty, rarefied, relatively speaking, to the league. Do you see Gurley being here longer term? Is this just like a 1-year thing? He might move on, being the fact that the team's on the treadmill to nowhere.
So if you look at their cap situation, they're in cap hell. I think there's no way that Todd Gurley's back next year. I think they need to get younger. They're going to have a new coach. And their cap situation, they might have a new quarterback. They might have to move on from Matt Ryan. We've heard, throughout this season, they might be looking to trade him in season. I don't think that's going to happen. They even said it's not going to happen. But I don't think Todd Gurley's here long term for sure.
That just means it'll happen tomorrow.
Maybe.
You came out that Julio Jones and Matt Ryan is not on the trading block, so it'll be traded tomorrow.
Yep, it could happen. But yeah, I don't think Todd Gurley's in Atlanta. But I think he is doing himself a great service. He looks really good. He looks much better than he looked last year with the Rams. So I think Todd Gurley's playing himself into another job, just elsewhere. But for this game, I like Atlanta to win it. I just don't trust Detroit. I don't trust Matt Patricia. It's not a buttoned up team. Not that Atlanta is, but I trust Matt Ryan and that stable of weapons more than I trust Matt Patricia with anything.
Yeah, and I agree with Brandon. Atlanta is in cap hell, and I think Gurley going there is kind of an audition to see where he's going to end up. And they're going to have to make some big decisions next year, Brian, like we said about a couple of different teams in the league. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. They might have to blow this whole thing up and start over because their defense is just god awful right now. But in the way of this game, you look at Matt Patricia and he's on the brink of getting fired too. He's got to keep winning because the time that he loses, he's probably going to get fired. So I like Atlanta in this game. I think that the firepower they have, both defenses, they're suspect. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I mean, like Tony said, 55 points. I mean, it's going to go over. I think 55 in a heartbeat. I think that's the bet of the week. But I think Atlanta could pull this one out. They're playing a little bit better without Dan Quinn there. But it's going to be a sloppy game from both aspects of it, defensive wise. But I think Atlanta can pull it out. And Matt Patricia will get fired in the next 2 weeks.
This is a relevant question to this game because Dan Wolfel, do you start Marvin Jones against Atlanta or Robert Woods against the Bears? I mean, clearly Robert Woods is the better player as the number 1 receiver. Yeah. However, that's a much more difficult matchup.
Marvin Jones.
It doesn't matter. Marvin Jones had 1 catch this last week, 2 catches the week before. Yeah. For whatever reason, and he's had good matchups too. They play Jacksonville. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I'm taking Robert Woods, more talent, better offense, bigger part of the offense. Although he has been a little.
When you start mixing stuff up for matchups, that's when you get burned. So yeah, I mean, Tony's right. Probably go with the better player and just start Woods and be done with it.
But you're really depending on Marvin Jones catching 1 or 2 big passes for a touchdown. And against this Atlanta secondary, it might happen. But, if you're more consistency, Robert Woods.
I think the floor of Robert Woods is in that, 12, 13 point area. And the floor for Marvin Jones is literally nothing. I would take the higher floor with Robert Woods.
Marvin Jones last week against Jacksonville, 2 catches, 8 yards. New Orleans, 1 catch, 9 yards. His best game, I guess, fantasy-wise, was 4 catches, 23 yards, and a touchdown. He's not startable at this point of the season.
Yep. Yeah. Touchdown reliant, and I don't really like playing touchdown reliant players over guys with higher floors.
But I would touchdown reliant guy with one touchdown.
But I would temper expectations on Woods, though. I don't think it's a game. I mean,
listen, if you look at what Marvin Jones has been doing, temper expectations on Woods is 4 catches for 50 yards. Marvin,
And guys, on the same aspect, question coming into me: do you start as a flex player, CeeDee Lamb or Robinson from Jacksonville?
Robinson from
James Robinson. Yeah, James Robinson. Who are they playing? Who's Jacksonville?
Chargers in LA.
It's going to be tough. But he's going to get too much volume. I mean, I expect CeeDee Lamb to have a decent game, but what we've seen last time Cowboys were out, I'd have to go with Robinson. He's been a pleasant surprise this year.
And I think that secondary from Washington could cause some problems. There's a rain down there too, I think too. So
they're the number one. They're the worst matchup for fantasy wide receivers is Washington secondary. So that's not really a friendly matchup.
I mean, for me personally, just in the same thing, I have a decision between Lamb, Christian Kirk, and Chase Claypool, and right now Lamb's the third one of those three. Because I can play Kirk against a very good matchup against Seattle. I have Kyler Murray. Or Chase Claypool's been great. Don't know what to expect with Deontay Johnson back. Fair question. In a different league, I might be sitting Amari Cooper. I have to between Cooper, DJ Moore, and Odell.
Yeah, I just think the weather's going to play a big factor down there too with the rain. There's going to be a lot of run all day long today. So
yeah, I like Atlanta in this game as well. The Ohio battle, the Cleveland Browns bring their 4-2 record into Cincinnati, where they are 1-4-1. Browns -3.5 in this game. The over/under is 50.5. Joe Mixon will not play in this game, which makes Giovanni Bernard fantasy relevant. If you want to take that shot, it's not necessarily a Hail Mary, but he will get a lot of volume. Baker is 4-1 career against the Bengals, and this is a battle of number 1 overall picks at quarterback. Brandon, you've been very critical of Baker Mayfield from the jump. And again, if you remember the draft show, Mike, we laughed at this pick because we thought it would be Sam Darnold. I mean, there's been that much of a difference. But Baker against good teams and Baker against bad teams, the numbers are actually a stark difference. So against teams this year over 500, Baker is 1-2. He has a 55% completion percentage. He has 4 touchdowns and 5 picks and a 64.8 passer rating. When you go against worse teams under 500, which I guess includes the Cowboys, 3-0, 67.1% completion, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a $108 on the passer rating. So having said that, the Browns are 1-4-1. They qualify as a team that's under 500. Okay. So your expectations of the older number 1 pick in this matchup?
Well, my expectation is they're going to play well. But I think you watch this Browns team play. They are loaded on offense. They added some offensive line pieces. They added a tight end in Austin Hooper. They have the great wide receivers. They had 2 running backs coming into the year. I know Chubb's hurt, but Hunt's been fantastic, so no drop off there. The issue with the Browns has been Baker Mayfield. I mean, Baker Mayfield, he's riding the bus. He's not the bus driver. And I think you see that when they play better teams, when they play teams with better quarterbacks, he cannot match up and he struggles mightily. And I think that's a problem. But against the Bengals, not a very good team, and they have a terrible offensive line. I don't really think the Bengals have much of a chance in this game. I just think the Browns have too many good players. It could be a big game for Myles Garrett. And no Joe Mixon. It's going to be tough for Joe Burrow, who's just been getting beat up every single week. But look, to the Baker Mayfield point, he's the 4th best quarterback in his division. Some good quarterbacks in that division. The Browns got to look elsewhere.
Well, to your point, Baker's leading the league in pass attempts this year with 246. Baker's has second fewest with the guys who've played 6 games. Tony, we remember very clearly how the Browns ran over the Dallas Cowboys. They had the number 1 rushing attack in the league. The Bengals have allowed 100-plus scrimmage yards to 5 different running backs this season. I guess that doesn't really bode well for their defense in this one going up against Kareem Hunt.
Listen, the book is open out, and how to beat the Cleveland Browns is very simple. You have to stop the running game. Pittsburgh showed it last week. Once you stop the running game, then they have to play from behind. Once they're playing from behind, that means the game is in Baker Mayfield's hand, and that is normally a bad thing. Little interesting note coming out of this week is you bring up that stat about Baker Mayfield. What was he was last in the league in pass attempts? Is that what you said, Brad?
Baker's second fewest among guys who played at least 6 games.
Gotcha. Well, Hugh Jackson came out, and we all know how successful he was in Cleveland, and said that they weren't utilizing Baker and his talents more as they should this week. So that shows you a lot about why Hugh Jackson is currently unemployed. But this is a good game that features the power running game of Cleveland, and they should be successful against Cincinnati. I just think that it's going to be one of those weird games, and I'm going to pick Cincinnati with the 3.5. I think there's going to be a couple plays made here or there. Giovanni Bernard, he's adequate. I mean, Joe Mixon is one of the more talented backs in the league. But I just think Cincinnati and Burrow gets it done today. I think if they could steal a little about Pittsburgh Steelers game plan, and blocking patterns, and how the Browns were trying to run the ball and not successful. I think Burrow gets a win over Baker Mayfield, and Cleveland starts to implode.
Mike, the Browns have 2 losses this year by more than 30 points. I believe those losses came to Pittsburgh and Baltimore. The rest of the other 31 teams have 0. So when the Browns lose, they lose catastrophically. You also were critical of the Baker pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not a big Baker Mayfield fan, and I think this year he's gone in reverse a little bit. And against the Cincinnati team where the defense is bad, I mean, we saw that last week how they blew it to the Colts, and the Colts, say what you want about Rivers, they came back 3 touchdowns and won that game. You think they would stop one by accident to slow them down a little bit, but Cincinnati's defense isn't good, but their offense is starting to come around a little bit. I mean, they have weapons. They have A.J. Green out there. They have Boyd. They have guys that can catch the ball. And Burrow looks like every week he's getting a little bit more comfortable here and there. Now, is Cincinnati going to pull away from the Browns? No, I think it's like Tony said. It's going to be a close game back and forth. That 3.5, I think, tells you a little bit of something. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Cincinnati can even pull this game out a little bit because I just don't trust the Browns that much. I just don't think they're that kind of team that you can just look at this game and say, yeah, the Browns are going to beat the Bengals handily. No, I think I'll take the Bengals as well, getting the 3.5. And if it's a close game and they lose, they're going to lose by less than 3.5. I think the Bengals can hang with them and it can probably even win this game.
2 questions for the group. Odell Beckham has fewer than 100 yards in 16 straight games. That is obviously the longest streak of his career. Is he startable today?
I mean, it's the Bengals, so.
Because I had that decision, like I said, I'm going to be sitting one of DJ Moore, Cooper, and Odell Beckham.
I think they're gonna have to run the football.
Who are your options, Brian?
Amari, DJ Moore, and Odell.
Carolina's playing.
I might start DJ Moore.
Carolina's playing New Orleans.
I have to sit one. I had to sit just one of those 3.
That's going to be a track meet, that game, New Orleans. And I mean, especially Bridgewater going back to New Orleans. So
the problem for me with Odell is just like Baker can't get him the ball. It's amazing. I mean, we thought it was an Eli Manning problem. I mean, it's a Baker Mayfield problem here with Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, it's been really, really bad. He can't get him the football, and they've tried different things where, they get the ball to Jarvis Landry and he throws him, Landry throws him touchdowns. So they're trying different ways to get Odell Beckham Jr. involved, and Baker Mayfield hasn't been able to do so.
And Landry's banged up. Landry's a little banged up today, so he might not be able to throw Odell the ball. But you know what? I'd go out on a limb and I'd go with Odell over those 3. The other 2 have question marks. I don't know what Amari Cooper is going to be doing with Andy Dalton. He really didn't have a good rapport last week when they actually needed to throw the ball. DJ Moore is the second receiver in Carolina now. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater really likes Robbie Anderson, and that New Orleans defense isn't the easiest to score upon. And I listen. You got the number 1 receiver against a bad defense, even though he hasn't been productive. He might not give you 100. But he might give you 50 and a touchdown.
Well, I'm going to sit Cooper right now because I want Justin Jackson in my lineup. I'm playing him wherever I have him. I think it's a great matchup for him today, which we'll get to that game. Yep. And I forgot my second question. Oh, I remembered it now. The trade deadline is November the 3rd. Happens to be election day. Go vote. Don't care who you vote for. Is A.J. Green a Bengal on November 4th?
yes.
I don't think so. He's under the franchise tag, and he's an older player, and we've seen T. Higgins really take a step with Joe Burrow. He's a rookie, and they great rapport so far. So I don't really know how much of a need there is for A.J. Green with Tyler Boyd, with T. Higgins. Go get something for A.J. Green while you can. Maybe trade him to a contending team, maybe the Green Bay or Philadelphia. I have no idea. New England. There's some wide receiver needy teams. I think would be better for Cincinnati to just go get a draft pick for him.
6th, 7th round pick, they'll walk him out the door.
I don't know if it's that easy to get rid of a guy like A.J. Green. He's had injury problems last year. I mean, he's a good receiver when he wants to be. I think he's just fed up being in Cincinnati. He wants out.
Well, there's reports the Eagles are shopping Alshon Jeffrey. I mean, in my opinion, I'd rather have A.J. Green 18,000 times more than Alshon Jeffrey.
I don't know what you're going to get for Alshon.
They've been trying to trade Alshon Jeffrey for a year and a half, and no one will even trade a bag of football.
Why would they?
Yeah, why would they?
So I mean, if they're trying to get rid of Alshon, that means A.J. Green might have a little bit of better market out there. So,
I mean, a lot of times a guy changing scenery is going to change his whole attitude. So that's got to be the case with A.J. Green right now. He needs out of Cincinnati. I just don't know.
He's not the same guy. It's health. He's coming off injury and he's playable, but he's not the same guy. Look at what Todd Gurley did. Listen, Todd Gurley got hurt 2 years ago in the playoffs. Wasn't the same guy. C.J. Anderson ran through the playoffs in that year. He came back the next year, wasn't healthy completely, but still played, wasn't effective. Now you see what he's doing in Atlanta. He's a much more productive player. A.J. Green, same thing. Hurt all year. Now he's back. This is his year where he has to try to get right, find himself. He might be a productive receiver next year, in a winning team. So I'm not going to be completely out of it. I don't think his attitude is an issue. I think it's just he's a little frustrated because physically he can't do the things that he used to do.
Yeah, I think Green Bay is a great fit, though, to go play with Aaron Rodgers.
A battle of the only two 5-0 teams in the AFC pits the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Tennessee Titans. Titans are -2 in this game. Over-under is 51. Tennessee is one of 7 teams in the league allowing more than 400 yards against per game. Pittsburgh has only allowed one 100-yard rusher since 2019. That is tied for the second fewest.
Who was that rusher?
I do not know. I don't know who that was. That was the only stat that I got. But what I do know is that Pittsburgh has scored at least 26 points in each game this season. Last year, they scored fewer than that in 11 of 14. Thank you, Ben Roethlisberger. Titans have won 6 straight regular season games going back to 2019. That is the longest active streak in the NFL. Derrick Henry leads the league with 33 touches in the red zone. That is ahead of Todd Gurley, second with 25. Here's my question for you, Brandon. Juju Smith-Schuster has now had less than 100 receiving yards in 10 consecutive games. What the hell is going on?
Well, I mean, they draft receivers very well, and they have Chase Claypool. They have James Conner establishing the run, which is something that Pittsburgh wanted to do coming into this season, was run the football. You have Claypool, who used a second-round pick, and you used a second-round pick on Deontay Johnson as well, who actually leads them in targets. I think Juju is struggling a little bit right now being the number one guy. We saw him for 2 years have tremendous success, but he had Antonio Brown on the other side. So I think maybe, with the number one corner following, we're seeing some struggles from Juju Smith-Schuster, and Ben, spreads the ball around to some other guys who are, getting open against, lesser coverage. But in this game, you show those stats up there. Pittsburgh doesn't allow 100-yard rushers. Tennessee has to run the ball, as we know, for that offense to really click. The defense hasn't been all that great, allowing more than 400 yards per game. So I think this is a game that Pittsburgh wins. I think it's a really good game. It's the best game of the week. I think for sure, a good 1 o'clock game. But I think in the end, Big Ben's able to, pick apart this defense a little bit.
Tony, here's my question for you. So Taylor Lewan's not playing in this game. I don't know if he's out for the season, but he's out for a while. The difference in record with and without him for Tennessee is actually startling. When he is playing, they are 12-5. They score about 28 points a game. They put up almost
Brian. What does that mean?
You. And they only allow less than 3 sacks. When he's not in the lineup, they are 2-2.
Did anybody else just glitch out?
Taylor Lewan?
No, I said, did anybody else just glitch out for a second?
Oh, no. You good?
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah, we're good. All right, go ahead, guys. I'm back.
Well, so their record, they're 12-5 with him, 2-2 without him, and the offense is really not as good without him.
No.
Concerned?
Taylor Lewan is a stud player. He's a nasty player. He's really the heartbeat of that offensive line. As much as Derrick Henry brings that power, running game, and physicality to it, Taylor Lewan brings just as much to that offensive line. Really set the tone for a lot of those holes. So yeah, obviously there's a huge concern against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Like you said, it's very good against the run. It's going to be a struggle. In regards to the Juju Smith-Schuster issues, I mean, if you look at that team, what they're doing is they're spreading the ball around. I mean, even with Deontay Johnson out of there, there's not many looks going there, and they're not using Juju as creative as they are Claypool. I mean, they're doing a lot of things with Claypool, moving around, jet sweeps, stuff like that, lining them up all over the place. Juju Smith-Schuster is just kind of being out there. He's outside receiver, and he's opening things up. I don't think that's really too big of an issue, though, because they are being productive in their offense. So as long as they're winning and they're productive, he'll be fine. I think when who was there with him before?
Antonio Brown.
When Antonio Brown left, there was huge questions of Juju being a true number one. And I think you're seeing it right now that he's not that true number one receiver. If you look at what Thielen's doing in Minnesota when Stephon Diggs left, I mean, he's picking right off, and they're having a productive season with Jefferson stepping up too. But Juju isn't of that caliber at all. He's more of a one-trick pony. If Pittsburgh continues to be creative on defense, and creative on offense, and their defense is able to wreak havoc against Derrick Henry, I think this game falls on Ryan Tannehill. And Ryan Tannehill has been playing very well and making plays this season with A.J. Brown back. This is going to be it's 2 5-0 teams at 1 o'clock. It's going to be a great game.
And Mike, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna pick Titans at home. I'm gonna take Titans at home. I think it's a little bit more something that they're trying to prove. I think they feel disrespected of his team in general, and I think Gabriel has done a great job.
Mike, to Tony's point about Tannehill, who I've been critical of, but he's playing very well right now. He's got 117.3 passer rating since being named the starter of Week 7 of last year. That is the highest of anybody who's thrown the ball 200 times.
Yeah, listen, Tannehill's not doing what he did last year. We thought Tannehill last year was doing stuff not to hurt this team, but this year he's doing stuff to help this team. He's really playing at a good level, Brian. I know that we had this conversation before. You wouldn't have signed him to the deal he got, but I think with this team he really meshes well, considering it's a run first team and then a pass second team. But listen, for whatever it is, Tennessee's got it rolling right now. Derrick Henry looks like a monster. Last week 202, 3 touchdowns, did it when it mattered. He's just running unbelievable all over the place. And you look at Pittsburgh with Claypool, he's having a really good year to get Deontay Johnson back. I like Tennessee in the game, though. I think Tennessee really controls this game. I'm not saying it's going to be the best game of the week, I think, but I think Tennessee can win this game on the back of Derrick Henry again, just being who he is.
Tony, I saw you do this.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous comparison. First off, they don't play similar. Calvin Johnson's bigger, faster. 4.38 and 4.42 in NFL terms is light years apart. Whoever created that graphic, I guess it's the NFL. They're just looking at the hype up a rookie. It's completely disrespectful to Calvin Johnson.
I agree, Tony. Claypool's been good, but he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. So,
and I mentioned Dorial Green Beckham. His measurables, they're better than Claypool's. So let's slow down a little bit. The kid's having a nice start to the season. Pittsburgh's utilizing them well, but pump up the gas on Megatron comparisons.
Yeah, and Tony, you had mentioned Mike Vrabel. I think we need to start mentioning Mike Vrabel as one of the best coaches in football. You look at what he's done since he's gotten to Tennessee, and with this team, and he got them to the AFC Championship game last year and had a 10-point lead against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he's done a phenomenal job. He's pays great attention to detail, for sure. We've seen what he does, but against New England last year in the playoffs, with that penalty, I think he's one of the most underrated coach in football, and certainly one of the top 5 or 6 guys in the league right now.
And what I think he did well, Brandon, and this is where I was high on Tennessee coming into the season, is last year, the 2 years prior, they had Derrick Henry there. They didn't utilize him well. They were stuck with the Mariota offense and trying to do dink and dunk. He realized what he had in Tannehill. He realized what he has in Derrick Henry, and they created the offense, and he got the right personnel in there to run that offense. And as a coach, you have to realize what your weaknesses, your strengths are, and him going to that, making that adjustment just to complete offensive overhaul really shows that he's taking the right direction in a coach, not even just game management and stuff like that.
And it's very Belichickian, playing to what you have and doing really well and finding the best of what you have, getting the best out of it. And he's done that for sure.
Me personally, I really like Pittsburgh in this game. I think for a lot of the reasons, and that they're very good against the run. There's no Taylor Lewan. Tennessee is kind of a sieve defensively. That's a lot of yards per game to allow. You look back last week, really, if Romeo Crennel doesn't go for 2, we're not even talking about them being 5-0. We're not. So I lean Pittsburgh in this game. I got Pittsburgh in a couple parlays. It is what it is. If I lose money, I lose money. But I do like Pittsburgh in this game, personally.
A lot of people do too, Brian. Pittsburgh, there's a lot of money, a lot of people hitting Pittsburgh. But I'll fade the public and stay with Tennessee.
Yeah, agreed.
We will move to an NFC South battle. The Carolina Panthers bring their 3-3 record into the Superdome of New Orleans, 3-2. Saints laying 6.5 in this game, over under 50.5. Michael Thomas continues to be out. Emmanuel Sanders tests positive for COVID-19, which means I guess Traquan Smith's catching all the ball. at least the passing to the receivers. Teddy Bridgewater makes his first start against his old team in the Saints. Mike, this is your division. How do you rank these? I mean, like, you thought they weren't going to be able to catch the Saints. Really, I think Carolina has done better than anybody thought they would, being at 3-3. They won 3 in a row prior to losing last week to the Bears. The Saints are not winning the way that we expect them to. Of the teams that are above 500, they have fewer than 5 big plays per game. All other such teams are 320-1. So they're winning, but it's weird. It's not the Saints we're used to.
No, it's not the high-powered Saints teams we're used to seeing, especially with that Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders out. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, Daquan Smith, how he gets rolling today with different stuff. I mean, I don't know who they're going to throw to. They better get Kamara going today, because that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to get him going, maybe catch some passes. I don't know where they're going to get all this offense. It's almost like a lock under now with these weapons out for the Saints. Bridgewater going back to New Orleans, where he got his opportunity and where he played for the Saints. It is my division. I mean, I think the Saints can win this game. I'm gonna take Carolina today. But I think Carolina, in a way, has a little bit more weapons than New Orleans does today. I mean, yeah, they have the better running back, but Mike Davis hasn't been a slouch. He's been pretty good for Carolina right now. And DJ Moore could get rolling a little bit. I know the secondary for the Saints is a little bit is good and slows down some people, but they got some people that, like Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. They got some weapons. So I think Bridgewater coming back today, he's got a little bit of firepower, and Carolina can win this game and definitely cover.
Brandon, to Mike's point about Mike Davis, he's got at least one touchdown in every game since McCaffrey was hurt in week 2.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal, and they're actually 3-1 with Mike Davis as the lead back. For whatever you want to take into that, Teddy Bridgewater has looked really good. He's what Teddy Bridgewater does turn the ball over a whole lot and just manages the game well. This 6.5 line for New Orleans, I mean, Carolina plus 6.5 to me feels like the easiest bet of the week. New Orleans without Michael Thomas, without Emmanuel Sanders, we know Drew Brees cannot push the ball down the field. I think this is a game where we see the Saints offense continue to look the sluggish way that it's looked all year. I'm going to pick New Orleans to win it, but I think it's maybe a last-second field goal. I think Carolina plus 6.5 to me feels like the easiest bet of the week.
Tony, they're such a weird team, though, because we mentioned that they don't have a lot of big plays, but they're one of only 6 teams to average at least 30 points a game this year. So they're finding ways to get in the end zone.
Well, I think they do. I think it's a little bit misnomer just because they don't have some big names, out there. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater's playing a great game, managing it well. Mike Davis is phenomenal what he's doing in that offense. I mean, I think when the fantasy world went in flux, when CMC went down, everybody ran to grab Mike Davis, but they could never imagine what they were getting with him. That the key is that young Carolina Panthers defensive line, though. Derek Brown and some of the guys there, every week they're stepping up, making big play after big play, and they're really surprising people. I'm not too worried about the offensive woes for New Orleans as far as the injuries are concerned. Kamara, Latavius Murray, I mean, they've been out with Mike Thomas now, and they're already used to playing without him. So I think that's not that big of a deal. Sanders has had up and down production, but he's replaceable at this point in his career. I mean, he's not a big enough part of the offense where you actually lose him and they're playing for him. So I like New Orleans in the game, but I would not lay the 6.5 points. I mean, that's a straight Panther line right there, trying to get everybody to get New Orleans on under. So if I was betting the game, which I'm not, I'll take Panthers and the points, but I think New Orleans does win the game.
Tony, you like the over-under. What do you think? Do you like the under in that?
Life's too short to bet unders, Galetta. I don't ever.
I hear you.
50.5 is listen, they're good. They're very good at setting these numbers, man. Mm-hmm. I would probably lean a little bit to the under. I could see a 24-21 game, stuff like that, but it's going to be a sweat, and it's not a sweat I'm taking.
I like Carolina to cover. Not betting it, but I like Carolina to cover. The Saints should win the game. But having said that, again, the Panthers can control clock with their running game, and the Saints. You're right. They have played without guys on the outside. And it's going to be a big Kamara game. He's probably, he's got to be the number one fantasy guy in the league right now because it's all going to flow through him. And I guess a little bit of Jared Cook, but we'll see what they do. Latavius Murray actually kind of a sneaky play because they might actually just try to run the ball more, not having really anybody to throw the ball to on the outside. But I will say Carolina does cover. With a 0-6 Jets team, don't know if they're ever going to win a game again. They host the 4-2 Buffalo Bills coming off 2 straight losses. Bills laying 10. Over-under here is 45.5. For the Bills, Dawson Knox, their tight end, was positive COVID-19. He will not play. John Brown will not play. The Jets have scored fewer than 20 points in 5 of 6 games this season. Interesting about that 10-point line, Mike, is that 31 of Adam Gase's 40 career losses as head coach have been by 10 or more points.
Yeah, but there's one, and it's scary. I will not touch this game in a way of a bet either, but interdivisional home dogs sometimes cover, and that's a lot of points to give a Jets team, even though they're terrible, to a Buffalo team without their tight end and without a wide receiver. But saying that, I think the Jets are that bad that I think Buffalo can still cruise in this game. I mean, they struggled Buffalo last week against a good Kansas City team. But I think Buffalo bounces back this week, and I'll lay the 10 with Buffalo. I just think the Jets are that bad of a team. And with that, I want to turn this over to Brandon real quick. Brandon, you are big on Sam Darnold and were big on Sam Darnold going to the Jets. So hypothetically, the Jets are a bad team. They get the first overall pick again, and here we are 2 or 3 years into the Sam Darnold era. If you're the Jets, do you automatically take Trevor Lawrence, or would it be an option to trade that pick down and get multiple players that you do need because you keep taking a quarterback over and over and over again, and it's the same old trend that's not working for your team right now?
Well, let me start that answer by saying this. There's only 2 teams in the NFL that I don't think Trevor Lawrence is an upgrade over right away at the quarterback position. Let me start off by saying that. Secondly,
good thing he doesn't play Syracuse in the NFL.
Well, he played at Alabama too, but and Ohio State.
Did you see the game yesterday?
No, I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
But
all I'm saying is pump the Trevor Lawrence brakes. Justin Fields looks a lot better. To say that Trevor Lawrence is better than every quarterback in the NFL besides 2 players, future, past, present tense, is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I'd take him over everyone in the league other than Mahomes and Wilson for the next 10 years. But if I'm the Jets and I have the number 1 pick, I'd trade Darnold and take Trevor Lawrence. But for this game, I think the Bills, they win this game handedly. The Jets without Darnold, though, and we talk about Darnold and the struggles that they've had without Darnold, 0-8, 9.8 points per game, minus 154-point differential, 92 yards per game on offense, the New York Jets, without Darnold since 2018. They're not even competitive without Darnold. Sam will make them competitive, but they don't cover this. They don't cover this game. The Bills win this. They bounce back. Josh Allen, I think we see more of the Josh Allen that we saw in the first 4 weeks than we saw the last 2, because it's kind of like the Baker Mayfield thing. Against good teams, Josh Allen's terrible. Against bad teams, Josh Allen's amazing.
I'm glad you brought that up because I have those numbers. So the last 4 weeks, or the first 4 weeks of the year, when Buffalo was cruising, 31 points a game, 410 total yards per game, 102 passer rating, 4.8 red zone drives per game. So he was doing perfectly fine. The last 2 weeks against Tennessee and Kansas City, 16.5 points a game, less than 300 yards per game. His rating dropped by 50 points to 75, just 2 times at a red zone per game.
Well, good thing he plays in the AFC East with a bunch of bad teams. I mean, hey, let's go back to our conversation about, should we reseed? Well, listen, Josh Allen gets to beat up on these bad teams, and now all of a sudden he's the MVP of the league conversation and stuff like that, which was a little ridiculous, but he's going to play good against bad teams. So do we take that into consideration and reseed, penalize Josh Allen? Nah. Listen, Buffalo boat racism today, though.
And to the Josh Allen point, last year they played some playoff teams. They played New England twice, Houston in the playoffs, the Eagles. Allen was bad in all those games. They lost all of those games. So, I mean, there is a trend here with Josh Allen. Against the playoff teams, not good. Against the bad teams, he's much better.
Well, I think it's not just Allen, it's the Buffalo Bills in general because, I mean, They're a solid defensive team. Josh Allen is a great football player. He's not a great quarterback yet. He has a little bit of that McNabb in him. Like, you're really going to like him as a football player, but you're as a quarterback yet. Kyler Murray's the same thing. Kyler Murray the other night, he couldn't hit DeAndre Hopkins wide open multiple times. So these guys right now at this point in their career, they're great football players. They're going to make plays, blah, 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 and all that stuff. But if you're going to depend on them to drop back and spin the rock and look like a great quarterback, I think you're going to be disappointed. And the fact that they could go in and play the Jets, I don't care if it's Sam Darnold, Sam Misselli, I don't even know, he's too young to know Sam Misselli or whoever is out there playing quarterback. The Jets quit. They traded their captain. The Jets are just end the season. And
the Jets have scored 6 offensive touchdowns this year. All year.
Not good.
Yeah, Buffalo defense isn't going to get that offense right, So
Still more than the Giants, though, right?
No, 6 is the least in the NFL.
Well, that's what the Giants scored last week. They only had 3 coming into last week.
Now, what's interesting about this game, too, from the running standpoint, is the Bills are only one of 2 teams with Washington that don't have a single player with 75-plus rushing yards. Curious to see, if they can get Devin Singletary going in this game. I know this because they spread them, Zach Moss, whatnot, but they need to figure that out. This has everything for a get-right game after these last 2 weeks.
I think that number lies a little bit, though, Brian, because if you look at it, the games that they were in, they were behind a little bit, against Kansas, stuff like that. So, I mean, you're not going to be able to run the ball as is. Plus, with Josh Allen taking a lot of those short yardage runs and actually being pretty active in the running game, it takes away from Singletary. And then you have Zach Moss back this week, too. So, I mean, listen, if you have I don't care if there's a 100-yard rusher on the team. If you have 3 guys that rush for 50 yards, that adds up good for me.
Bills cover.
Bills cover. If I didn't get a straight flush banged against me, I would have had a lot last night. I would have had a lot more money to bet on this, but it was a good night. So I'm going to roll it onto the Bills.
There you go. Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys 2-4. Visiting the Washington football team 1-5. Washington's -1 in this game. Over-under is 45. Dallas has won 7 of the last 8 games in Washington. Their quarterback, Kyle Allen, has lost 8 consecutive starts going back to his time in Carolina. Tony, I'm going to give you some numbers here that you're not going to be surprised at, basically. The Cowboys have allowed 30 consecutive points, 30 or more, in 5 straight games. That is tied for the longest single-season streak in franchise history. Hopefully that comes to a stop today. They have trailed by at least 10 points at some point in each of the last 5 games. And according to Next Gen Stats, Cowboys quarterbacks have been pressured on 107 dropbacks this season, which is the most in the NFL. Probably has something to do with the fact that every motherfucker on their offensive line is hurt.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, because I know how the local Eagles fans like to cry about the injuries, but the Cowboys don't have a starting offensive line, and they don't even have a backup offensive line. They're on 3rd string. 75% of their offensive line is 3rd string guys, 2 rookies. They do get I think Connor, who comes back today? Connor Williams, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a mess. But you know what? It's a mess that everybody is in today's NFL. I'm still going to go with the Cowboys. Offensive talent is just too big there. I think Andy Dalton got the nerves out on his primetime game, which Andy Dalton's always horrible in primetime. And I mean, it really doesn't matter last week if Dak played or Andy Dalton played. That was really annoying this week, seeing that going back and forth. It doesn't matter if Dak played last week. If Ezekiel Elliott fumbles the ball twice like that in that situation and those plays happen, it doesn't matter who wins because you're not bringing them back. Now, is Ezekiel Elliott going to fumble twice this week? I'll say no. I think he got that. I mean, is that horrible offensive line going to be able to contain a very strong defensive line? I think Allen and I think Chase Young's playing today. You still have Ryan Kerrigan who's on the trade block. It's going to be a test, but I think Andy Dalton settles down. I think they're able to score some points against Washington. I don't know if Washington is going to be able to keep up with them making plays, but you expect guys like Kyle Allen and Terry McLaurin are now all of a sudden fantasy relevant, and I think McLaurin has a big game. But I think Cowboys pull out a close game. I just think they're 2 separate football teams trying to have a different focus. I think Washington's more in this tank mode. I think Cowboys still have a little delusion of grandeur, and they're not going to ever, be in that tank mode. So I think Cowboys win just on the prerogative of getting our favorite and Des Bryant's favorite defensive end back, Randy Gregory. So before he gets to his suspension, he's active today. So
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
I was actually going to ask you this. So we know that the Dallas defense has been god-awful this year. They obviously were gashed by the Browns on the ground in that game that they lost. But the Washington is the only team in the league to not have a player with 60 rush yards or more at any time this season. Does that change today with Antonio Gibson?
No, probably not. I think Dallas wins this game. I don't really know where Washington gets much offense from outside of Terry McLaurin. Gibson and McKissick, they've done more in the receiving game than they have on the ground. And that Dallas defense, certainly it's a good matchup to throw against. But I think Dallas wins this game. I think they're, like Tony said, they're playing for more. They have, they still have those three receivers. They still have Zeke. I know the offensive line's banged up and it's a mass unit, but that could be a concern against the Washington defensive line. But I think just in the end, the receivers and the weapons are too much for Washington to handle. And I do have a fantasy question. I have Terry McLaurin. I also have Allen Robinson. I have one flex spot. Robinson against Jalen Ramsey. I tend to stay away from Jalen Ramsey. Would you play McLaurin over Robinson?
As do the Cowboys GMs, but yeah.
Don't remind me.
Terry McLaurin, I think, is a must start this week, to be honest with you. I mean, he's going to get the volume, and Robinson, it's a bad matchup against Jacksonville. As you said, I think it's pretty much an easy start.
Mike?
Yeah, I like Dallas as well today. I think the weather's going to play a little bit of a factor too. It's a 60% chance of rain down there, considering we're in the Philadelphia area and Washington's like 2.5 hours south of us. It's been raining here most of the day, and it's going to rain down there too. So I think it's going to be a run-heavy game today. And when you look at the two running backs for both teams, I think you got to go with Zeke a little bit more. Yeah, like Tony says, is he going to fumble twice today? No, I don't think so. Even in the rain today, I think he has a bounce-back game today. I think it's run all day for both teams today. Not a lot of air attack because of the weather. I see the Cowboys winning too. I just think the Cowboys are a better team. Washington's still trying to find their identity offensively. I don't know how they're going to, pull it out if they're going to beat Dallas, even though Dallas's defense hasn't been much to be desired. But I still think Dallas is a better team. I still think Dallas gets the win.
If they don't win this one, I mean, I don't know where you go. I don't know where you go where you don't win this game. I mean, what I will tell you is that since 2007, Cowboys backup quarterbacks are 7-21. So.
Well,
that's Kellen Moore, Cooper Rush, and some really bad quarterback play.
Brandon Weeden. I mean, yeah, that was the biggest thing that I've always had a gripe against with Romo is the backup quarterback situation because he was so hurt. Because they did have good teams, and then he would get hurt. I think the one year he got hurt towards the end of the season. They were a playoff team, and yeah, I think it was Brandon Weeden that kind of came in the game. Or I mean, it was just
Kyle Orton. It was Kyle Orton against the Eagles for a division in Week 17. I think
Kyle Orton. I mean, neck beard himself.
Listen, Dallas did one of the best things in the league last year in bringing in a backup quarterback that has played as a starter for a very long time. Now, with that being said, Dalton being thrown into this, you got to understand, Dalton's been with the Cincinnati Bengals for his whole entire career. He's got to get, just like a Brady thing, just like a Rivers thing, he's got to get comfortable. He's got to get reps. He's got to get timing. He's got to get all stuff. I think Dalton will be fine. He's just got to get the work in and just get comfortable with the Cowboys, and I think he'll be fine.
The Cowboys better win. I'm leaving it there.
Happy birthday, J-Rock. Thanks for joining us.
J-Rock, we share a birthday?
Yeah. You still share a birthday. I wonder if he's still calling for 7 and 9. For the Eagles.
Sure.
Last game at 1:00, the Green Bay Packers, fresh off their waxing in Tampa Bay last week, take their 4-1 record to Houston, where they are 1-5. The Packers are laying 3 points. The over/under is 56. For Green Bay, injuries: Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari, both out. Houston is 0-5 all-time at home against Green Bay. Green Bay's defense, though, allowing 34 points per game on the road, just 18.5 points per game at home. That is the biggest gap between home and road in the NFL. Mike, the Packers have not lost consecutive games since weeks 11 through 13 back in 2018. They lost last week. What do you make of that?
I don't make anything of it because I think Green Bay doesn't lose back-to-back games, like you said. They got smoke last week. They got taken apart by my Bucks, and just everything lined up for the Buccaneers last week, and everything went wrong for Green Bay last week. I do not think that even comes close to happening this week, even with Aaron Jones out of the lineup. I think the Packers find a way to get Devontae Adams going. They're going to have to go to an air attack. And listen, Houston, Houston's playing better without, O'Brien there, but they're still Houston. I don't think they're that good of a team to compete with the Packers. It's going to be a back and forth game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any stretch, but I will lay the points with the Packers. I think the Packers can get it done this week and will not go back-to-back losses.
Tony, there are some interesting numbers. You compare Rodgers and Watson, right? So Rodgers 4-1 and Watson's 1-5. They both have 13 touchdowns. They both have roughly a 108 passer rating, give or take a point. Roughly both about 300 yards per game. But Watson's 1-5 and Rodgers 4-1. And it's funny because we talk about surrounding cast. I mean, both of these guys have players around them. You could even make the case that I guess with Aaron Jones, that was different. But is this like just a defense thing because Houston can't stop anybody?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think what you've seen last week with Houston, they kind of blew their load with getting rid of Bill O'Brien, and now I think they're going to come back to reality.
Their load.
It's not a G-rated show here, Brandon. So.
I already said motherfucker.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing going. I think Aaron Rodgers was completely embarrassed last week. I think what you've seen in that Tampa Bay game is he got hit, he made a couple mistakes, and he quit. He scored his touchdown, was talking shit, and then all of a sudden now, for lack of another better term, he bitched out that Tampa Bay game, and I think it's going to be a hard check with him. Devontae Adams is going to have a huge game. Even though Adam Jones is out, I mean, the combination of Dillon and Jamal Williams is one of those one of the better backup. There he is, Devontae David. They have one of the better running back units. Vegas doesn't really even know how they're going to use them because A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams both have over on the rushing yards at 51.5, which is telling. After a good start, David Johnson disappeared. Brandon Cooks has stepped up with a ton of targets, but I just think it's a bad matchup because I don't think Houston, which was the key to Tampa Bay's victory, was running the ball. Houston isn't going to be able to run the ball against Green Bay, and they're definitely not going to be able to pass the ball against them to that much success. And I think Aaron Rodgers is a little bit perturbed, ornery from what happened last week, and he comes out and and he shows that he is a bad man. And as we all know, he does bad things to Texas teams.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Eileen. I saw wish happy birthday, but Aaron Rodgers was embarrassing last week. I mean, he celebrates a touchdown that didn't even count. He's doing some weird dance. I don't even know what that was.
It's discount double check.
No, he was doing like some sort of humping thing.
It was the one from Key and Peele when they made fun of double check.
And from that point on, he went on to throw 2 interceptions, both nearly pick sixes, and was absolutely abysmal. He was embarrassing last week. I do not see that happening again. I think the Green Bay wins this game by a touchdown. Houston hangs around because Watson, will have some magic. See that the graphic there with the Green Bay defense, certainly on the road, it's not the same defense. But I think in the end, Rodgers and Adams, they connect and they win this game, really because they need to. I mean, Chicago Bears are 5-1 football team. If they lose this game, you fall back in that division. You lost a couple of games. You probably looked at and said you were going to split. Green Bay's got to win this game. I think Aaron Rodgers is pissed. He should be. He was not good. But I think they do pull this one out against a really bad Houston defense.
In his career, he has never had 2 consecutive starts with 0 touchdown passes. He has 179 such career starts. That's the most by a quarterback since at least 1950.
He threw a touchdown last week.
He ran it in.
No, it didn't. Aaron, yeah. He did throw a touchdown last week. That is true.
Well, you know what? I think the Texans cover. I don't know if they win, but I think that they cover. There is so much money coming in on Green Bay, and the line has not moved a little bit. They haven't had to. Usually, they will pump that line up. They haven't had to. In fact, it's actually down a half a point today. I think the Texans might actually win this game. At the very least, I think they're going to cover. Might even be a push. I don't really know. But if I'm betting the game, I'm taking Houston plus the 3 points. That's just the way that looks to me. I think missing Aaron Jones is a big deal. I think missing Bakhtiari is a kind of big deal, but not that the Houston can really take advantage of that. It is a difference. And the fact that Green Bay's so porous on the road defensively against Watson, who's kind of, getting his groove back a little bit with that performance he had last week in Tennessee, I will lean with Houston to at least cover the game. Not sure if they win it.
I just sent you that KMP celebration, gentlemen.
Did you?
Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
We got everything here. Yeah. Brian, you're I guess you just like to burn money taking Houston today. I don't know. I think 3 points isn't enough. I would not bet on this game. If I did bet on this game, I'm taking Packers, maybe Packers money line, something like that. But I'd have to be getting more than 3 to confidently place my money in Romeo Cornell's hands.
We shall see. We'll go to the 4 o'clock games, which I know will get Mike very moist. In fact, might look a little bit like that.
I'm always moist. So.
Little non-duck action. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 4-2. They take that 4-2 record into Vegas to play the Raiders, who are 3-2. They are laying 4 points in this game. The over-under is 51. A couple of first games in a while for John Gruden. His first game against Tampa Bay since winning the Super Bowl. It's the first game against Brady since the infamous Tuck rule in the snow of New England in 2001. We talk about how good Tampa's defense is, and I think that really that's basically the reason why they're where they are. Tampa's the second team in the last 20 years with 10-plus takeaways, 20-plus sacks, and fewer than 70 rush yards allowed in their first 6 games. The team was the 2008 Steelers. Raiders are 3-1 against Tampa since they lost the Super Bowl. But defensively, Mike, the Raiders wide receivers are averaging just 13 targets per game this year. That's the fewest in the league. That probably bodes well.
Yeah, I mean, their secondary has played well. It's a young secondary. You got 2 rookies back there. You got Bunning back there from Central Michigan, who they took last year. And they've held their own right now. Their linebackers are really good. Their defensive line is really good. The Bucs defense has definitely improved. Offensively, they have weapons. We talked about this in detail, at the start of the show about, adding Antonio Brown. We'll see how that goes. But I just think Brady's getting comfortable in the system now, and it's really starting to do wonders for them. The Raiders have had another week to prepare, although I know their offensive line, I think the whole offensive line got COVID at one point or most of it. And like you said, the Raiders offensively, they're still trying to find their way. Derek Carr is a good quarterback. I like Derek Carr. I thought he would be good fit for the Bucs before the whole Brady conversation happened last year. But I still think the Bucs are going to be too much for the Raiders to handle, even with that week to prepare for them. I do like the 4. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout, but I do think the Bucs can cover that 4. And listen, Gruden doesn't scare me. I know he's coached the Bucs before. That was a very long time ago, and he didn't do a good job after the Super Bowl of making this Bucs team a steady team moving forward. Is the reason he got fired. So I just like the Bucs in this game. I'll lay the 4, and Bucs should come out on top.
Tony, I want to compare the running backs in this game. So Ronald Jones has 100-plus rush yards in 3 straight games, only once in his previous 28. But what's interesting is the actual how close he's been to a guy like Josh Jacobs, who gets a lot more play in the media being who he is as a first-round pick. They're both averaging between 75, 78 rushing yards per game. They're about Josh Jacobs actually less yards per carry by about 1.3 yards. Both about 90-ish yards per game. Touchdowns are pretty close. Ronald Jones had a really nice couple of games here for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he's especially with Leonard Fournette out. He stepped up. Actually, last week he did phenomenal and really was able to give the Tampa Bay the keys to that victory. And that's why when we talk about, we spent a lot of time talking about Antonio Brown addition there. Antonio Brown addition isn't winning this team the Super Bowl. Gronk's addition isn't really winning this team the Super Bowl. If they could establish the run game, Fournette's back. Obviously, you're going to see a big down tick in the usage of Ronald Jones in his production, with Fournette being back. But I mean, that's a very good 1-2 punch. It establishes it. I don't think that Brady still is in love with not having that true pass catching running back. But that is something that Rojo has gotten a little bit better in doing. So when they're looking at a team like Las Vegas, who can score very quickly, as you see, Henry Ruggs had a couple big plays a couple weeks ago, long passes. I think you're going to see Tampa Bay control the ball, control the offense, work underneath with Godwin. Hit Evans, if he's healthy, try to get him more established in the offense, and really use that power running game. And defensively, Levante David, Devin White. I mean, these guys are just flying to the ball, and I thought losing Vita Vea would really take a step back in the run defense, but it really hasn't. The guys have been stepping up, and I think defensively is just too much for Tampa Bay, and I think they're going to be ground pound and make opportunistic plays, and then I just don't think the Raiders are going to score with them.
Hey, Brandon, quarterbacks in this game: Tom Brady, Derek Carr. Who's got a higher completion percentage?
Probably Derek Carr.
Who's got a higher passing yards per game?
Probably Derek Carr.
It's his birthday. Why are you doing this to the kid?
Who's got more yards per attempt?
Derek Carr. Who's got a better? What?
Who's got fewer interceptions?
Probably Derek Carr.
Who's got a higher passing ring?
Yeah. Who's got more touchdown passes?
Not by that much, though.
No.
Only by 3. I'm just saying.
Who's got a better record?
I just say that because
who's married to the supermodel?
Hey, who doesn't want to be Tom Brady? But the point is, Derek Carr's played actually really well this year. I think better than people think.
He played well last year. The guy had 70% completion percentage entire last year, and Gruden still wants to get rid of the guy. I mean,
the only concern with Carr is getting the ball down the field. But when he's had receivers, he's gotten them the ball down the field with Henry Ruggs. The concern for me this week with Vegas is they need to establish the run for that offense to really open up. Playing against the Bucs, very hard to establish the run. That's why I'm leaning Bucs. They don't have Antonio Brown, as we know. He won't be there until week 9. They do get Leonard Fournette back. To Tony's point, he's a better pass catcher for Tom out of the backfield than Rojo. I like Tampa Bay to win this game. They cover, but I think this is going to be a good game. I think the Raiders are better than we thought. I think this is going to be a good game, but I think in the end, there's too many weapons. The Bucs defense it's too suffocating for the run game. I think they win this game by 6. I'm going to say 28-22.
It'd be interesting to see how the offensive line not practicing all week and being together is going to come in place against that defense too.
Yeah, is Steve McClendon playing? The Bucs just traded for him from the Jets.
Yeah, I believe he is.
Defensive tackle. Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't seen active or inactive designation, but I believe he is playing. He's been. Did you hear about what happened with them when
he got in a car and drove?
No, but the Jets said that there was a car there, and there wasn't a car. He knew before last week's game that he was not going to be a part of the Jets after the game. And Jets said, "Yeah, there's a car waiting for you." And he goes there, and there was never a car there, so he had to find his own way and drive himself, which is classic New York Jets. And Brandon, I know that's a topic you love talking about is the New York Jets. So
they stink.
Yeah, well,
top to bottom.
Did you want to respond to Jeremy's comment here?
No.
Okay. What does that even mean?
Then we'll take it off. The screen. I like the Bucs to win, Bucs to cover. I think that they're rounding into form now. I think the team that they're going to be, we're finally starting to see that. And to Mike's point, Brady's getting more comfortable with the surroundings, and obviously he's running the offense. So we'll take Tampa and lay the 4 there. The Kansas City Chiefs take their 5-1 record into Denver, who is 2-3. Chiefs are laying 7. The over/under is 44. The Chiefs have won 9 consecutive against the Denver Broncos. There is a winter storm warning here.
Storm warning. I love it.
They're talking about 2 to 5 inches of accumulating snow, 11 degrees by the fourth quarter. Tony, any concern about the weather here?
Not at all. If you remember what last time Patrick Mahomes played in a snow game, he said, "I think I'm a snow quarterback," or "I think I'm a bad weather quarterback." I forget what it is. There's a famous little blurb out there. Fantasy perspective, I think this gives Clyde Edwards-Helaire a little bit more life because they're going to be running the ball more consistently. You have to see how much Le'Veon Bell is going to be incorporated in it. On the other side of the ball, you get Melvin Gordon back, and then Lindsey looked very well for Denver. So you have this team has 2 very good running backs on both sides of the ball teams, and I think you're going to see a more physical running game. 19 degrees in the snow, and snow always favors the offense too because they know where they're going. No Sammy Watkins, so you're going to see a guy like McCole Hardman and them. get some opportunities. Travis Kelce should have a huge day. Noah Fant's back for Denver. So this is going to be a running back and tight end game for fantasy perspectives as well. Not a great game for Tyreek Hill unless he could get a little slant route and break it, for deep. But the bad weather doesn't affect Mahomes well. And, although Drew Lock, he's used to playing in Denver. His first game was his first game back or second game back? Was he back last week?
He played last week.
He played last week. They just don't have the weapons really with KC, but I think it's going to be an ugly game, as you can see with the over under 44. I believe it was 49 before the storm moved in. That's a 5-point swing, which is huge. With such a low over under laying 7 on the road, I'm not going to do. So I'm not going to touch this game at all. But I'll take Kansas City to just have a little bit more talent and take care of Denver in the bad weather.
Mike, the Chiefs are the only team in the league to rank in the top 10 in both passing yards and rushing yards this year, which proves they can beat you any which way you need them to beat you. But here's what's interesting, too. The Chiefs have scored the same amount of points this year as the next two opponents, Denver and the Jets, have combined.
Yeah, and like Tony said, you got a Kansas City team who have played okay in the snow before, and they don't – I mean, you really don't miss a beat with their running back situation and their wide receivers and things like that. I mean – with snow, it's obviously going to add a little bit to it. I like Denver in this game. I think 7's a lot in this kind of weather. If it was a little bit lower, I know. I mean, they're on the road too, and they're laying 7 to a Denver team whose defense has played okay the last couple weeks. Offensively, they might be inept and they might struggle a little bit, but they do get Melvin Gordon back, and Lindsley's played well. So listen, as crazy as this sounds, I like Denver in this game getting 7. I mean, I don't think Denver can really pull away from Kansas City or really, convincingly win this game, obviously. But I think Denver's got a shot, but they'll definitely cover that 7 points. They'll keep this game close. It'll be a sloppy game in the snow. I like Denver getting 7 points at home in a divisional home dog.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Le'Veon Bell's impact on this offense is. And we saw the Chiefs rush last week for over 250 yards. I'm interested to see how Le'Veon Bell plays into that. We still, Clyde Edwards-Helaire struggles on the goal line in those short yardage situations. So I do think Le'Veon Bell is going to have a role. I think the Chiefs win this game. I do think they cover. I don't think the Denver Broncos are going to be able to score to keep up. I don't really think the Chiefs, I don't think it affects them too much. I still think they score in the 30s. And I don't know how much beyond even 20 the Broncos can get, especially with Drew Lock, who hasn't looked very good this year. Didn't look very good last week against New England, and I know it's New England, but he missed some throws that were there. I think Mahomes and that running game, the receivers, the weapons, I think it's too much, and I think the Chiefs win pretty handedly.
Chiefs in the over.
Yeah,
my call in the game. The San Francisco 49ers take their 3-3 record to the New England Patriots, who are 2-3. They are laying 3 points in this game. The over-under is 45. Brandon, as our resident Patriots apologist on the show, going back to the Brady days, I have something to let you know. Really interesting numbers here. So New England's actually under 500 through 5 games for the first time since 2001. I'm sure there's probably a reason for that. Cam Newton has led the Pats in rushing 3 times this year, and his passer rating has declined in 4 consecutive games that he has played it. Bill Belichick is 7-1 against quarterbacks that were drafted or started for him in his New England tenure since 2000. We'll see if they play the Bucs, what that looks like. But what's your read on this one coming off that surprising loss last week to Denver?
Well, I think teams have started to really figured out what New England can do, and that's run the ball. That's all they can do offensively. They don't have any wide receivers. That was an issue last year. It's part of the reason why Tom left. In fact, it's probably the main reason why Tom left. They don't have any receivers. Cam's not a precision thrower. So throwing the football, they're inept, really. It's very hard to come by. They have to run the football. Teams know it's coming. I don't like Cam. I do like New England today, though, because I've been saying it for 2 years. I do not trust Jimmy Garoppolo. New England takes one thing away. New England's going to take away George Kittle. And when you take away George Kittle, how else are you going to beat me? I don't see Jimmy Garoppolo being able to do that with Stephon Gilmore and there's that secondary out there. So I think New England wins this game. I think it's a really low-scoring, ugly football game. But I think in the end, New England's able to win it I still don't think New England's very good long term, but today I like New England to win this game.
Tony, to Brandon's point, the Niners are 3-0 this year when they hold their opponents to 24 points or less. They are 0-3 when they allow 24 points or more. So there probably is some viability to what he's saying.
Oh, absolutely. And I think he's right with the game plan that Patriots are going to have. They're going to attempt to take George Kittle out of it like they did Waller and really really knock out their best weapon that the other team, and that's what Belichick focuses on. But I think the problem is George Kittle is too good of a player that I don't think they're going to be able to contain him as well. Have you seen last week, Deebo Samuel stepped up? I mean, Garoppolo actually had a pretty decent game last week, especially for them fantasy-wise. So, but this is the real NFL, and I think Garoppolo is settling down. He's going to make the plays that he needs to make. He's going to have New England wishing that they never traded him because now they have Cam Newton, who is just going to regress. A lot of it is not Cam's fault, to be honest with you, because we could say he's inaccurate and everything, but he's always been inaccurate, and that's just part of his game. I think the real problem is that the offense that they have running now, they don't have a ton of weapons. Damian Harris, I don't know if he's a solid back, but they have to establish him. And once teams start shutting down the run, which I think 49ers are going to be looking to do with Fred Warner and that linebacking core. I think the big thing is, though, the offense. Teams are already caught up with the offense. It's something that they ran. It's sort of like what Greg Roman runs in Baltimore, but they don't have Lamar Jackson. But if you see what I'm not going to really bring up the guy's name. Kaepernick used to run, and Robert Griffin used to run, and they put the same thing in with Cam. They eventually catch up to it, and if you don't have other weapons out there, you're going to struggle on offense. I think Patriots struggle on offense. Jimmy G return to Foxborough is going to make all the ladies happy, and it's going to make 49ers happy.
Yeah, I don't care if San Fran's going across country back to New England. It sometimes it makes a difference, but like Tony said, Garoppolo going back to New England, I think he's going to get him fired up. I don't like Cam Newton. I don't think he's playing that well. I don't think he's a guy anymore that's going to put the team on his back and carry you through a game. I don't think he's that kind of guy anymore. I just like San Francisco. I think San Francisco played well last week, even though they don't have Mostert. He's out I think he's on IR now. I think San Fran can get it done today. I like San Fran with the 3 points going into New England, and get it done.
I originally liked San Fran in this game, but I think there's some sharp money coming into New England, so I'm going to stay as far away from this game as possible. But I think it was – actually, all of you brought up the tight ends point about taking Kittle out of the game. Kittle has 38 targets, 30 receptions, 380 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Every Patriots tight end has 11 targets all year with 6 catches, 82 yards, no end zone. So, yeah, it's a big disparity there. I think – I keep saying San Fran needs to win because of the division that they're in, and I do maintain that. My initial thought was San Fran outright wins. I'm not too sure right now. I will stick with that, but I am not putting a single dollar on this game. For sure.
And still, in 121 games as a head coach without Tom Brady, Bill Belichick 7 games under 500. So,
well, Tom Brady's pretty good.
He is.
I heard somebody mention that before. He's good.
Yeah. It might have been me. I don't know. It might have been.
Eileen can't stand Garoppolo. It will be a tough game. But again, Bill's done well against former quarterbacks. But having said that, when he's played former quarterbacks, he's had Tom Brady. So you have to kind of adjust for that.
And who are these former quarterbacks too? Like Matt Castle and Ryan Mallett. It's a bunch of crap too. So.
That's what I was about to say too. What former quarterback is out there a stud? It's not like he used to have Aaron Rodgers or something like that. I mean, he had cast-offs.
Right, and that's the big difference. Last of the 4 p.m. games, the Jags take their 1-5 record into LA to face the 1-4 Chargers. Chargers laying 7.5 in this game. The over/under is 49. Both teams have not won since week 1. The Chargers are one of 2 teams to have every game so far this year decided by 1 possession. The story, obviously, for the Chargers is Justin Herbert. Since he's come in, they've looked really good. They may not have won yet, but they've looked a lot better offensively. This is Justin Herbert's first start against a quarterback who is not an MVP or a Super Bowl MVP or a Pro Bowl quarterback. So he gets a little bit of a reprieve there on the other side. Mike, you were putting your thumbs up. I know you're all about Justin Herbert. You're a little Donald Duck for him. So just go ahead and lay it out there.
Why do I have to be always sporting wood over here? I just like Justin Herbert.
I'm giving you a compliment.
I think coming from Oregon,
Those guys your age can't get it up, so be happy.
There you go. So All right, thanks, Tony. I feel better now. So, coming out of Oregon, I think, Herbert had a good last year. I saw a couple games that he played. I've been high on this kid for a while, him and Josh Allen when he came out. I just think he could play, and I think Anthony Lynn showed the kind of coach he was because he had to put Justin Herbert in. He would still be going with Tyrod Taylor if Tyrod Taylor didn't get hurt over that dumb thing with shooting up his ribs or whatever like that, and he got hurt. But listen, he's in now. He's a Chargers future. He's only going to get better every week. I think this is a good matchup for him with Jacksonville. I believe it or not, I do like Jacksonville in the game, though. I think 7.5 is a lot of points, even though they're in LA, because Jacksonville, I think Minshew can play better. I know a lot of people are down on him, and I know some people think he's not the future for Jacksonville. I kind of don't think he is either. But I think against a Chargers team with defense who hasn't been that good, I think this is going to be definitely an over game. It's going to be a shootout. Herbert's had the opportunities to come back and win games. I think he can win this game, but 7.5 is a lot of points for a Jacksonville team that I still think can hang in this game with a Chargers team that hasn't played that well all year yet. I do like Justin Jackson to go crazy this week. I like Robinson to go crazy this week. Like I said, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game for both teams up and down the field. I just think it's a lot of points to give a Jacksonville team that's pretty on the same level as Chargers. So I'll take Jacksonville getting 7.5.
Yeah, there's some reports out that if Gardner Minshew continues his poor play from the last couple of weeks, he could be getting benched. Mm-hmm. Mike Glennon's the backup. I don't really know how realistic that is.
Still cashing checks.
Yeah. But I like the Chargers in this game. I really like what I've seen from Justin Herbert. He looks phenomenal. I mean, he looks like the best rookie quarterback so far. I know Burrow's looked good as well, but Herbert's looked a little bit better. He's got some weapons there with Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry and Mike Williams and the running back. I like the Chargers. I like them to cover. I don't think Jacksonville's very good at all.
I mean, I agree. I think, how can you not like what you've seen from Justin Herbert? From a fantasy perspective, he has 22-plus fantasy points in 3 of his 4 starts. Jacksonville has allowed 24 points or more to fantasy quarterbacks in 3 of their last 5. That bodes really well for him. And really, the biggest proponent, I think, or the biggest beneficiary, I should say, of Herbert coming in is Keenan Allen. He's got almost 40% of the targets in the 3 full games they've played. That's immense. He's going to him, and it's working. So, the Chargers were my second pick for Survivor. I'm going with the Bills because my new strategy is pick against the Jets every week until you're wrong. So I'm going to just keep doing that. But if that wasn't available to me, Chargers, I think, are a great pick for Survivor.
I think Chargers show that they're a much better team than Jacksonville today. I mean, Jacksonville's they're struggling. They're losing to bad teams like the Lions at home last week and stuff. And Mike, you said that Chargers haven't played well. I disagree. The Chargers, I think, have played phenomenal. They took Kansas City in overtime. They lost at New Orleans by 3 points. Lost to Tampa Bay at Tampa Bay by 7 points. I mean, they lost a tough game.
They're all one possession losses, yeah.
And they were up in all of those games. They were up by 17 plus.
They played 4 winning over 500 teams in their last 4 games, and they were in the game every step of the way. Now they have Jacksonville coming in. Let's talk about the Chargers defense. Jacksonville, the offense is not going to do much against Chargers. Their defense really stepped up, even though they don't have a lot of the playmakers like Derwin James. Chargers big over Jacksonville. Justin Herbert gets his first win. I'll take the 7.5 without a problem.
Got 2 more games that we're going to squeeze them in before the 1 o'clock cutoff there. Sunday Night Football, Seattle's 5-0, going into Arizona 4-2. They're laying 3.5 in this game. The over-under 54.5. Russell Wilson is 6-1-1, career at Arizona. Kyler Murray has 2 more rushing touchdowns than the entire Seahawks do, and they're scoring about just under 34 points per game. What's interesting about this game, if you believe in trends, is teams with 5 or fewer days of rest in between games are 32-17 versus teams with 10 plus days of rest since 1990. That does apply here if you think Arizona's got a shot. The Seahawks, though, through their first 5 games are so different than the team that won the Super Bowl. In 2013, they were 4-1. They were scoring 27 points a game. They were plus 56-point differential, and their defense was through the roof. They were plus 314 total yards. This year, minus 377. They're winning games very differently than that team did in 2013. This defense is god-awful, and I think it's going to be a bit of a problem for them to overcome that. But the offense has been good. Again, tops in the NFL with almost 34 points a game. The last 4 Super Bowl winning teams have been at least top 5 in scoring in the regular season. So, Tony, how concerned would you be about their defense knowing that their offense is killing it the way that it is?
Well, you got to be very concerned. I mean, both sides of the ball here, Seattle and Arizona. 54.5 might be the halftime over under, to be honest with you, with how bad these defenses are. I mean, Arizona's 3-point anomaly against Dallas last week was just that. Seattle coming off a bye week. Arizona's not going to be able to stop them at all. But for either of these teams to have any progression, you're going to have to see somebody somewhere make a defensive stop. Jamal Adams, I believe, is out again. But even with Jamal Adams, they weren't very good defensively. So it's about what quarterback is going to make the play, into what wide receiver. And I mean, you have Hopkins, you have Kirk on one side of the ball, and then DK and Locke on the other side of the ball. And listen, this is a fantasy game where you get everybody in. Once again, though, I'm not going against Russell Wilson. When I see Kyle Gurley versus Russell Wilson, I'm taking the 2 short guys. I'm going to take what do he calls himself, Mr. Impossible or something like that. Danger Russ. I'll take Russell Wilson to get the W. They're rested, and this is a short week for Arizona.
Yeah, this is going to be a high-scoring game. But look, there's 2 guys I don't really like to bet against. It's Russell Wilson and Tom Brady. Russell Wilson's playing a bad defense. Kyler Murray has shown a propensity to turn the football over and throw some interceptions. And there's an issue with Kyler Murray throwing inside the numbers. He's very good outside the numbers, but with his height, he struggles to get the ball in the middle of the field. So, I mean, some of those throwing lanes are difficult for Murray to hit. I do think Seattle has a tough time stopping the Arizona receiving game, certainly with DeAndre Hopkins on the outside. But I think Russell Wilson in the end with DK and Tyler Lockett and Chris Carson, there's too much there for Arizona to stop. And Russell Wilson, to me, is the best player in the world.
Over in Seattle. Easy.
Nice over. Yeah, I the trends say take Arizona. It's hard for me. I don't want to touch this game either, but I think the trend tells you should probably take Arizona based on what those numbers look like. Last but not least, Monday night, we'll get through this quickly. The 5-1 Bears at the 4-2 Rams. Rams -6, over under 44.5. Rams are 14-4 at home since 2018. Goff is 8-6 in prime time since 17. Chicago's won 6 of 8 against the Rams. So something has to give there. Battle of 2 excellent defensive players between Mack and Donald, three defensive player of the years, 11 Pro Bowls, well over 140 sacks between them. It's actually just impressive numbers. Al Robinson leads the league, 40 receptions without a drop, despite the fact the quarterback play has been pretty terrible for the Bears. I lean the Bears here. I don't know. I think the Rams struggle offensively. I don't think their defense is good enough, and I think that the Bears find a way.
You took the Bears?
I took the Bears.
Is that the first time this year?
Might be.
Yeah, I'm not following that. I'm taking the Rams. First of all, you mentioned the Mack versus Donald battle, which might not even happen. Mack's extremely questionable when he's banged up. I just think that the Rams have a little bit too many weapons. They could run the ball. They could throw the ball. I will bet against the Chicago Bears every week because I just don't think that they're real. Nick Foles has that team at 5-1. I have no idea how he hasn't played good. I mean, he's looked bad.
But remember when the Rams were supposed to be really good that one year, and then they went in Chicago, and the Bears broke them. Like they're a completely different team after that game.
The Super Bowl year.
Yeah.
Well,
but
he hasn't faced anybody like Donald.
Has no relevance here because they're completely different squads. I mean, there's no, it is an anomaly, and Todd Gurley was a shell of himself, and blah blah blah. But we're talking about 2 teams coming in here right now. Running game, Rams. Passing game, Rams. Defense is a lot closer than people want to expect, although, Rams isn't the best, but I think that does well. Chicago. I'm not laying the 6 points, but I think Rams win this game. They win it outright. They're home, prime time, Monday night. Yeah, I'm taking Rams all day.
Yeah, I'm taking the Rams as well, though I think it's close and the Bears might cover. But to the Aaron Donald versus Khalil Mack point, through their first 100 games, they've each played 100 games. Aaron Donald, 79.5 career sacks and 17 forced fumbles. Khalil Mack, 66 sacks, 20 forced fumbles. He also had 2 touchdowns. It's just incredible to me that a defensive tackle, and Aaron Donald at his size, has 13 and a half more sacks than arguably the best edge rusher in the sport in that time. It's just incredible.
How many games have they played, Brandon?
They've each played 100.
They've each played 100?
Yeah.
Because I can swear Mac missed some a couple chunks of a couple seasons. So
yeah, well, Field Yates said they both played through 100 games. That's incredible to me. That's a season's worth of sacks more for Donald. He's just an incredible player. I like the Rams tonight.
Mike?
I like the Rams too. Rams win the game.
All right, we'll finish it up. Well, guys, thanks for watching Week 7 preview on the Sports Box. Check out our friends at Crowd Play. App available, Apple App Store, Google Play. Check them out. And we will see you again next week. We got shows all week, though, so don't miss it. See ya.
Woohoo!
Thank you for watching the Sports Box. Follow us on Facebook at Sports Box Show, Twitter at Sports Box Show, Instagram at The Sports Box Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our friends at Crowd Play. Download the free Crowd Play app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 points. See you next time.